Most people think getting rich feels like a turning point, a number that finally clears, a specific morning where you look at your account, exhale, and think, okay, I made it. The pressure lifts, the anxiety stops, some version of a finish line. But real wealth, the kind that actually sticks, the kind that changes not just your balance sheet, but your entire relationship with money, it doesn't feel like a turning point at all. It barely feels like anything. In fact, the people who are genuinely getting rich right now often look around and see nothing worth celebrating yet. They're too locked into the contribution going out this month, too focused on the plan to stop and measure how far it's already taken them, too disciplined to confuse not finished with not working. They're building in silence, and the silence is the point. I'm going to show you 8 signs you're getting rich, even if nothing about your life feels like proof of that yet. Because the truth is, the people building real quiet wealth don't wait until they feel successful to act accordingly. They do the work first, they build the habits first, and the numbers, slowly then suddenly, catch up. My name is Nat, and I spend probably too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people build financial freedom on an ordinary income, while others earn more and somehow end up with less. If that gap interests you, if you've ever wondered whether the right moves you're making are actually adding up, subscribe. You're in the right place. Here's what nobody talks about when it comes to getting rich. It doesn't feel like a jackpot. There's no confetti, no notification that says you've arrived. Most of the time, building wealth feels completely uneventful. It's the raise you redirected before lifestyle inflation could touch it. It's the emergency fund you stopped monitoring because it's just there now, doing its job. It's saying no without needing to explain yourself. The boring, quiet, deeply unglamorous work of making the same right decision over and over long after it stopped feeling like progress. And if any of these 8 signs show up in your life, even 1 or 2, you're already on a path most people spend their whole lives looking for and never find.
There's a number that matters more than your salary, more than your investment returns on any given month, more than your credit score or net worth at any snapshot in time. It's the distance between what you earn and what you spend. That gap, that monthly margin, is the engine of everything. It's the only input that you fully control, and it's the one that compounds the most brutally over time. Most people treat a raise like permission to upgrade. Slightly better apartment, nicer car, the gym with actual towels, and the spending expands to absorb the income. The gap stays flat. Sometimes it actively shrinks because lifestyle inflation has a way of outpacing salary growth. The financial term for this is living below your means, and it sounds simple, almost obvious. But living below your means isn't just about being frugal. It's about keeping the gap alive and letting it grow even as income rises. That's the version most people miss. Meanwhile, someone else gets the exact same raise and does almost nothing with it. The lifestyle barely shifts, and that $600 a month difference gets redirected somewhere else entirely. Here's the math on what that actually means. Say you're 32 years old, and you find a way to widen your monthly gap by just $500, not through some dramatic sacrifice, just redirecting a raise before lifestyle inflation swallows it. $500 a month into a broad index fund averaging 8% annual returns. By 62, that $500 a month decision doesn't turn into $180,000 in contributions. It turns into roughly $745,000 in wealth. The same money, just captured before the drift happened. The gap is the whole game, and the sign that you're getting rich is that your gap is growing, even slowly, while your lifestyle stays roughly where it was. Do you actually know what your gap is right now? Not approximately. Exactly. What came in last month, what went out, and what's the difference? That number tells you more about your financial future than almost anything else. This one is subtle. It's also real. When people first start getting serious about money, first Roth IRA, first index fund purchase, first time they actually hit their emergency fund target, there's a pull to tell someone, a partner, a friend, a comment section somewhere. You want acknowledgement. You want someone to say, yes, that's the right thing to do. And then at some point, the pull disappears. Not because you've lost motivation, because you've gained something quieter and more durable than motivation, a system. and the system runs whether or not anyone is watching. The money moves on the first of the month whether or not you post about it. The contributions hit whether or not you feel inspired that week. Here's the pattern. The people loudest about their financial journey, the ones with the save 10K in 90 days updates and the portfolio screenshots, are usually early in it. The people who are quietly getting rich stopped giving updates some time ago. Not because they have something to hide, because the process has become routine enough that it doesn't require external reinforcement anymore. That silence is confidence. It means you're building wealth to build wealth, not to be seen building it. And that distinction matters more than most people realize, because the desire to perform financial progress is one of the most reliable ways to derail it. But there's something underneath these first two signs that most people never calculate, and it's where the real separation starts to happen. Lifestyle inflation is the slow leak in every wealth-building plan. It doesn't happen dramatically. Nobody decides to become someone who lives beyond their means. It happens in small upgrades, each one individually justifiable. Better neighborhood, upgraded phone, the streaming service that came with a free trial and is now just part of the monthly overhead. And the test of whether you're actually building wealth isn't whether you got a raise, it's what happened to it. Think about this. The average salary increase runs somewhere between 3% and 5% a year. On a $68,000 salary, that's $2,000 to $3,400 more per year. Call it $225 a month. Most of that $225 is absorbed into lifestyle within 90 days. Not recklessly, just through drift. A slightly nicer lunch spot. An upgraded clothing that feels reasonable given the new income. A subscription that didn't exist in the previous version of your budget. But the person who intercepts that $225 before the drift happens, who increases their automatic investment contribution the week the raise hits, before the new money has time to feel like spending money, is doing something that compounds quietly and dramatically over time. Over a 12-year career, that habit, just capturing raises before they inflate your lifestyle, can produce a difference of $90,000 to $120,000 in invested assets compared to someone who doesn't. Same income, same market, different decision about what to do with the growth. When your first instinct after a raise is how much more can I redirect, rather than what does this unlock for my lifestyle, that's a real sign you're getting rich, and it's one of the ones that's hardest to see in yourself while it's happening. There's a version of an emergency fund that lives in constant awareness. People check it nervously. They know the exact balance. They feel vaguely anxious about it being used. It's not really a buffer, it's a different kind of financial stress, a number they're always afraid of depleting. And then there's the version that actually signals you're building real wealth, the one you genuinely forget about. Not because you're careless, because the cushion is large enough and your financial life is stable enough that it doesn't need monitoring. It's just there. 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account, growing at something reasonable while it waits for a crisis that may never arrive. The psychological shift this creates is hard to explain until you've felt it. Someone mentions their car needs a $1,600 repair. The stress in their voice is visible. The mental math is already running. Which card, which bill gets delayed, how long to recover? For you, a $1,600 car repair is a Tuesday, an inconvenience. You handle it, you refill the buffer over the next couple of months, and you move forward with no ripple effect. That's not about wealth in the flashy sense. It's about not living in crisis mode, which turns out to be one of the most financially important things a person can achieve. Because financial stress isn't just emotionally unpleasant, it actively impairs decision-making. It makes people choose options they wouldn't choose if the pressure were lower. The buffer doesn't just protect your money, it protects your judgment. The sign that you're getting rich isn't just that the buffer exists, it's that it's become unremarkable, part of the background of your financial life, rather than the thing you're anxiously watching. Comparison is a poverty tax. It costs real money, but the mechanism is psychological, so most people never trace the expense back to its origin. Your coworker picks up a $58,000 truck. Your neighbor's vacation shows up on Instagram. The group chat is talking about a concert where the tickets are $300 each and totally worth it. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a calculation starts. Should I be doing more of this? When you're genuinely building wealth, that calculation fades. Not because you stop noticing, you notice, but the noticing no longer triggers anything actionable. You see the truck and your brain doesn't process it as a signal about your own life. You're not running their choices against your own anymore. The scoreboard you're keeping is different, and theirs isn't on it. Here's what makes this sign financially significant, not just psychologically. The moment you stop optimizing for other people's perception of your finances, you save a substantial amount of money. Not in a traceable line item, but the impulsive purchase you made to stay level, the vacation you booked because you didn't want to be the one who stayed home, the car upgrade that was really about the parking lot at work. Those decisions quietly disappear, and the cumulative savings over years is not small. A financial planner documented 2 clients with identical incomes, identical starting points, identical market exposure across a 20-year period. The gap in their net worth by year 20 wasn't explained by investment returns. It was explained almost entirely by the purchases one of them didn't make. Quiet wealth is, in large part, the accumulated weight of things you chose not to buy. And the financial mindset that makes that possible isn't willpower. It's simply stopped caring what the scoreboard looks like to other people. When money is genuinely scarce, or when the systems aren't in place yet, it occupies a disproportionate amount of mental bandwidth. You're doing math constantly. Rent plus utilities, plus the credit card minimum, plus the thing that comes out on the 15th. Every small decision carries a financial calculation. Every unexpected expense is a problem to solve in real time. And then, gradually, something shifts. The systems start running on their own. Contributions go out automatically before you touch the paycheck. Bills pay themselves. The budget is set and mostly doesn't require active management week to week. And the mental space that used to be occupied by financial anxiety starts to clear. The sign that you're getting rich isn't that you think about money more carefully. It's that you think about it less, not because you're avoiding it, but because the machine is running and doesn't need constant attention. This is quiet wealth in practice, not a balance sheet, but a state of operating. What happens to that freed up bandwidth? People use it differently. Some directed toward work, which often leads to career growth that wouldn't have been possible while their brain was in survival math mode. Some put it toward relationships, creative work, or projects that had been parked in the background for years. This is the compound effect of financial stability that almost no one talks about, the compound dividend. Getting your money sorted doesn't just help your account balance, it gives you your attention back. And what you do with that attention is often where the next level of growth actually comes from. Look that up in your own life. When did you last spend an hour thinking about money out of anxiety versus thinking about something that actually excites you? That ratio is more informative than most financial metrics. There's a question that separates people who are accumulating money from people who are genuinely getting rich. How much of your week do you actually control? Not your account balance, not your rate of return, your week, your Thursday afternoon, your Saturday morning, your ability to say yes to something because it matters and no to something because it doesn't. When financial pressure is low enough, time becomes the actual scarce resource. And the shift in how you value it is one of the clearest signs that your wealth building is working, even if the number in your account doesn't feel large yet. You start making different calculations. A $15 parking spot near the entrance is not an indulgence. It's buying back 25 minutes of your afternoon, and you've decided that trade makes sense. You hire someone to handle a task not because you can't do it yourself, but because doing it yourself costs you 3 hours you'd rather spend on something that either earns more or matters more. You start saying no to commitments that are expensive in time without being valuable in return. This reorientation doesn't happen from reading about it. It happens when the financial floor is solid enough that you can look up from survival and start thinking about design. Here's a concrete version of this. Someone spending their entire Saturday doing every home maintenance task to save $180 is making a very different calculation than someone who outsources that work and puts the same hours towards something that either earns more than $180 or improves their life in ways that don't have a clean dollar value. Neither choice is wrong in every circumstance, but the shift from one mode to the other is a real indicator of where your financial life has landed. And the way people talk about their time changes too. They stop wearing busyness like a badge.
They stop treating a packed calendar as evidence of success and start treating it as a problem to fix. The goal stops being, I'm doing everything, and starts being, I only do the things I actually chose. That's not laziness. That's what it looks like when someone has built enough financial breathing room to be intentional about where their hours go. Most people never get there, not because they can't afford to, but because they never stopped to run the math on what their time is actually worth. If you've recently started paying for time, deliberately, not out of laziness, write that down. It's a sign your relationship with wealth has matured past the accumulation phase into something quieter and more powerful. There's a specific flavor of financial inaction that sounds responsible from the outside. I'll start contributing more once I pay off the car. I'll build the emergency fund once work settles down. I'll sort out the budget after the holidays. It has the language of caution. It doesn't feel like avoidance, but it is. The people quietly getting rich aren't waiting for perfect conditions because they've understood something real. Perfect conditions don't come. What comes instead is a variation of your current situation with slightly different details, different stress, different constraint, different thing that needs to get handled first. The people who built wealth did it from inside that version of reality, not after escaping it. The math on delay is unforgiving and doesn't care about the reason. If you push back starting $400 a month in investment contributions by just 5 years, you don't lose the $24,000 you didn't invest. You lose the compounded growth on every single dollar for the entire remaining length of your investing life. At 8% average annual returns over a 30-year horizon, that 5-year delay doesn't cost you $24,000. It costs you closer to $180,000. The 5 years feel manageable in the moment. The outcome is not. The shift from I'll start when things are better to I'll start with what I have right now is the whole game. Not the amount, not the perfect account type, the decision to begin and to continue regardless of conditions. If you've already made that decision, even imperfectly, even with a number that feels too small to matter, you're ahead of where most people ever get. And in this game, that's the entire sign.
Here's what I want to be honest about before we finish. None of this is a guarantee. Building wealth quietly, doing these 8 things, developing these habits, doesn't mean life won't disrupt the plan. Markets move in ways that don't respect timelines. Health expenses happen. Situations change. No financial plan is shock-proof, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. And here's the other thing. Some of these signs are going to be harder to see in yourself than they are to read about. The gap growing quietly, you might not feel it for months. The silence that replaces the announcements, you might not even notice when it arrives, because silence doesn't announce itself. The buffer becoming unremarkable, that only registers in retrospect, when you realized you used to monitor that number constantly and now you simply don't. These signs are easy to miss precisely because they don't come with any noise attached. That's actually the point. But what these 8 signs actually point to isn't a number in an account. It's a relationship with money that is stable enough, intentional enough, and genuinely yours. The foundation of real financial independence. Not built on keeping up with anyone, not contingent on feeling successful before you keep going. That's what financial freedom actually looks like in practice. Not a moment, but a mode of operating. The sign that you're getting rich isn't a feeling, it's not a moment, it's the accumulation of all the small, unremarkable decisions that keep running even when nothing feels like progress. The scariest thing about building wealth is the thing that one comment stuck with me. Nothing changes day to day, and then suddenly, everything has. That's exactly right, and it's the part that breaks most people, because they expect to feel the progress before it arrives. They want confirmation that the path is working before they commit to staying on it, and so they look for signals in the wrong places, in the account balance after 1 month, in how the number feels compared to what they see online, in whether the gap between where they are and where they want to be feels like it's closing fast enough. The real signals are the ones this video covered. The gap that's quietly growing, the silence that's replaced the announcements, the raise that went somewhere different this time, the buffer you stopped monitoring, the comparison you stopped making, the background noise your money has become, the hour you bought back on a Thursday, the contribution you made without waiting for a better moment. The people getting rich don't wait until it feels that way to act accordingly. They build the thing first. The feeling, if it arrives at all, is quiet,
a little